Okay, moving on to Mars now. Mars is the archetype that has to do with courage, confidence, assertiveness, athleticism. Mars is that impulse to take action. It has a lot to do with leaping forward into action. As Rick Tarnas says, Mars is what gets us out of bed in the morning. Mars is when we go to the gym. Mars is when we go for a hike. Mars is when we attack life. That Nike slogan, "Just do it," is a Mars slogan. Or that line from Lord of the Rings that was featured in the film, in the last film. That line, "Courage, Mary, courage for our friends." When we find courage for ourselves and courage for those we love, that's the coming into Mars. Mars is the knight that is protecting the kingdom. Mars is the knight that goes out into the countryside to protect the castle. And we all have to have those inner knights and warriors that can stand up for us and protect us and fight for us. Mars, of course, has a lot to do with aggression and anger. It's the god of war. And the whole issue of anger is central to Mars and how we relate to our anger, how we experience our anger, how we channel it, whether we're repressed with anger or whether we're acting anger out in unconscious ways. These are certainly areas that relate to the challenges of the journey with Mars. To me, the central question as relates to anger is the whole issue of learning how to be assertive without going on the attack. The two challenging sides of Mars that can get us into trouble are the defensiveness of Mars and the attacking style of Mars, as opposed to the kind of centered confidence. That's not defensive. Centered confidence is just when you feel strong in yourself. And assertiveness, as opposed to attacking. We attack when we're not confident in ourselves, when we're not confident in our capacity to pursue our goals. We go on the attack when we don't feel adequate. We assert ourselves confidently when we are in our center. And so an archetype like the Moon-Mars combo, again, one of the 45. Mars has 9 specific combos: Mars with Pluto, Mars with Neptune, Mars with Uranus, Mars with Saturn. Here I want to mention Mars with the Moon. The Moon having more to do with the family of origin and the childhood, and Mars having to do with assertiveness, confidence, athleticism, and so forth. So Moon Mars would be classic for a family that's very athletic, for example, or certain family members where there's an athletic emphasis, or sometimes see Moon with Mars where there's a strong element of the family containing military members. But here I want to just explore the idea where Mars is anger and conflict, and the Moon is the family. And so people who have Moon, Mars, and hard aspects sometimes grow up in families where there's this sense of domestic anger, domestic conflict, where sibling rivalry, sibling aggression, or anger flying between the parents in the household is typical. And when you have that experience of the childhood home being a battleground, what do you learn? You learn to be on guard, defensive, because at any moment there could be bullets flying or missiles flying, and you got to be on your guard, defensive. Also, there's a sense of only limited resources, limited emotional resources, where you have to fight to get what you need. And as you come into adulthood, these are childhood survival strategies that then become concretized in adult life, where you basically have those two patterns of being defensive and going on the attack, operating in how you see the world, where from childhood you learn there's not enough resources to go around and everybody's fighting to get their needs met, and you're also protecting yourself from other people who are on the attack. And then you grow up and you look at the world through that lens, and a lot of people are doing that. whole nations are doing that at this point, where there's this sense that there's not enough to go around here on planet Earth, and you got to fight and be defensive to protect what's yours, like the U.S. Fighting to protect its territory and its principles, and also going on the attack, preventive strikes to protect ourselves, because there's that sense that everybody's fighting to get the limited resources. Well, the positive moon Mars is learning how to be confident without being defensive or on the attack in terms of pursuing your emotional needs. It's when you've developed a strong warrior within who can take the action that needs to be taken in order to get your emotional needs met. This is one of the skills that we all need to learn how to do. The Moon Mars archetype is the advocate archetype, when you fight for who you care for or what you care for. And hopefully, one of the things you care for is yourself, where you learn to advocate for yourself, to be an advocate for your own needs. And so this is an example of how a kind of positive Mars journey can happen, where you learn to be more confident and learn the action that needs to be taken in order to take care of yourself. Some people have the Mars archetype kind of turned way up in terms of wattage. Hot personalities, irritable and aggressive types. In a positive sense, a very strong Mars wattage would look like leadership. A lot of leaders have strong Mars. Mars has a lot to do with will and asserting your will in the world. Some people don't have enough Mars in their lives. And so for these people, doing something like leadership training or something like martial arts might be helpful. I find that I have a somewhat weaker Mars. I don't have a lot of fire. Mars, by the way, has a lot to do with the element fire. And Neptune is water, Uranus is air, Saturn is earth. Mars is fire. And you can learn what elements are weaker or stronger in your own psyche. And for me, Mars is a little weaker. In some ways it's strong, but it's definitely not my strongest planet. And I can sometimes have lower energy, can kind of drop into inertia. And I know that it can really help if I kind of kick my own ass and get out the door and go to the gym and ride a bike for 30 minutes. It brings in enough of that nutrient of Mars action and athleticism that kind of brings my consciousness into a greater sense of alignment and balance. And so some people need to exercise more, some people need to exercise less, some people need to learn how to fight harder in the positive sense, and some people need to learn how to fight less in the problematic sense. Anything else I want to say about Mars? Yeah, I think that's a good introduction to Mars, and I think I'll end there.